Recording in progress. Okay. Hello and good morning. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of my Skyora podcast series. And I'm your host, Abhilasha Motwani. Today with me, I have Anez Katre, who is dedicated to helping individuals navigate life with greater emotional clarity, confidence, and purpose. With over 3 decades of leadership experience in premier schools, she brings a rare blend of practical wisdom and deep insight into human behavior. A lifelong learner and multifaceted professional, Aniz's journey extends far beyond the schools. She runs a beautiful homestay in Mashobra, is a trained first aider and lifesaver. She has established a horse riding school where she has taught over 250 children and is now exploring her passion for golf. Today, in addition to her work of offering professional development workshop for teachers, she is a certified life coach and works closely with individuals to manage emotions, respond thoughtfully under pressure, communicate with intention, make clearer decisions, and build stronger, more meaningful relationships, both at work and at home. Hello, Anez, and welcome again to Skyora. Would you like to share something about yourself before we start?
So thank you, Abhilasha. That was a very well-rounded introduction. I think you've covered it all, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on your platform.
Thank you so much. So, can I just ask you the first question? Would it be like, even after 30 years in education, what led you to step into life coaching for professionals?
It was a very natural transition. So while I worked largely in residential schools, I was very closely associated with students. A lot of pastoral care responsibilities come to you as a teacher in a residential school. And I realized that a lot of the behavior that the students showcase, or a lot of the behavior that we see in students, is really to do with a message that they're sending us. So behavior is communication. But behind that behavior is an emotion. And we all know that education goes beyond academics. So I began to get very keen on exploring this whole concept of human behavior, why we do what we do, and why we behave the way we behave. And I retired from the Doon School in 2019 as head of training. It's a large premier residential school. And I wanted to continue to give back to society, if I can say that, and realize that a lot of what the children go through comes from the parents. So this was a very natural transition. Most parents are professionals, and I felt that, if I could just widen this whole horizon of mine, widen the audience rather, to not just children, but to adults as well. So that then led me to become a life coach. I had the opportunity to certify myself, and thereafter, there's been no looking back.
Great going. Really, really impressive the way you have transformed from your professional journey to getting into life coaching. And of course, your horse riding school is out of the context. I mean, that's very different for many people. Not many people venture. And golf for you is amazing. I mean, I have not heard many women play golf. So great going, Anez. You've got a basket full of knowledge with experience to share with so many people who can absorb from you. So lovely to hear all these from you. So,
Thank you.
if I may ask, what are the most common emotional challenges you see in working professionals today?
Well, I have worked in corporates as well, and I currently am associated with a corporate organization who serves schools. And what I realized is the one big thing in today's day and age is how to handle stress. I think the stress levels have gone up tremendously. And a lot of us can respond to stress quite calmly, but a majority find it difficult to handle stress. And that comes from not having very clear boundaries, not being able to say no. So, constantly in fear that what if I disagree with my colleague or disagree with my boss? What will be the outcome? So, this fear of what the other person is going to think, prevents us from being authentic at work. That then results in us getting overwhelmed. And when we get overwhelmed, our performance drops. So emotional awareness, emotional knowledge helps us then navigate these challenges. Conflict is another thing. We find it very difficult to have difficult conversations because, again, we are worried about causing a certain level of disharmony at work. So, finding it difficult to disagree when you really want to disagree becomes a challenge. So I think these are the key areas. And then, of course, it's all very individual depending on what the person is going through their personal life, because you can't technically separate your personal life from your professional life. And we all have our challenges in our personal life as well. So to being able to manage and navigate these emotions so that we are able to perform to our best at work, and yet not take away from our personal best at home. I think that's really the main challenge that individuals are facing today.
Absolutely, you're spot on. And how does emotional intelligence directly impact workplace success?
So again, I'm going to go back to my school experience. So a lot of my teacher training goes in areas of creating safe environments for students. And I think the same applies to professionals. Because when we are fearful at work, we feel threatened. And that is when our primitive mind or brain comes into play, where in the old days, the threat was from possibly a wild animal, a bear or something. And the message that the brain actually sent us was either freeze or fight. And the brain doesn't understand the threat. So the threat could be from a colleague, the threat could be from a boss. But all of this then makes us cognitively freeze. And there's a saying that when emotions are high, logic is low. So creating a safe environment at work, I think, would be very essential. When we feel safe, our body produces oxytocin. And oxytocin helps us to perform in a very calm manner. So I think that would probably be one of the challenges, a constant threat at work and a lot of competition. So that also we perceive as a kind of a threat. So that, and like I mentioned, conflict resolution, handling difficult conversation, all of that, I think, would come under the challenges faced.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And because of these challenges, it affects our performance and it affects our success.
Yes, absolutely. So many people think they communicate well. What are they actually missing?
I think we very often react rather than respond. Our ability to take that pause is missing. So when we communicate with somebody, we often, our mind processes words at a much faster speed than what the other person is saying. I think it's something as close as our mind processes words at 400 words per minute, whereas when you're speaking, it's much slower. So our mind is working overtime. We are jumping ahead of the conversation. And as a result, we're not really listening to understand. We're listening to respond. So the response is at the tip of our tongue, and we can't wait to get it out. So that pause, that ability to listen truly is what is missing in communication. The ability to listen to understand. What is my teammate really trying to tell me? What is my boss really trying to tell me? What is my colleague really trying to tell me? So that I don't jump into giving them a solution straight away. Maybe somewhere down the line, they're communicating to me that they're finding something challenging. Maybe somewhere down the line, they're communicating to me that I'm not feeling secure, or I'm not feeling heard, or I'm feeling invisible in office. These are all messages that are underlying. So looking out for body language, watching out for the other person's emotions, and also keeping an eye on your own emotions when the conversation is happening. That's all part of communication. And I think that's what's missing today.
Absolutely. So, what does responding calmly actually look like in a high pressure situation? How would you respond to that?
So imagine an office where there is a major disagreement and it's become a bit volatile. You will find that some are able to manage their emotions, respond in a calm manner, use language, be conscious of the language that they use. Whereas others find it very difficult, they lose their temper, they get into an argument, right? So responding calmly really means to be able to again pause, to be able to understand what are you feeling at that moment and to label that feeling. If we take that 5 seconds to do that, so I might be feeling angry, but what do I want as an outcome? So, what do I really want from this situation? My getting angry, my losing my temper is not going to help anybody. And especially if you're in a leadership position, you don't want to shut your teammates down. You want to encourage conversation. So, being able to respond in a manner where the other person is able to share their perspective, respond using a tone which allows the other person to feel safe to speak up, really is all about being calm. So, understanding what you're feeling, naming your feeling, and then allowing yourself to. So, that's when you engage your cognitive brain, allowing yourself to figure out what you really want out of the situation.
Great. And many a times, why do so many professionals actually struggle with setting boundaries? Is there a reason why they actually struggle?
I think as people, we are basically kind. And I think we confuse kindness with setting boundaries. We are worried about making the other person feel unhappy. We are worried about them not agreeing with us, and as a result, us being put in a position which is awkward to work with them. We hesitate to be authentic. We hesitate. That takes risk. So when you are in disagreement with somebody, when you're voicing an opinion that doesn't align with somebody else, you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable. But that is the only way growth will happen. So, and sometimes it's also the cultural environment, the workplace environment. There are probably organizations which don't value people voicing their opinion. But then you need to see whether your values align with that organization. So the cultural environment of the organization also makes a difference. But in the end, if we are unable to share our thoughts, bring fresh ideas to the table, think out of the box, it'll be very difficult for us to take up leadership roles. So that's something for us to consider while trying to be kind and trying to be nice. Are we really doing ourselves harm?
Very true. So, what is one small habit professionals can build to improve emotional awareness?
I think, like I mentioned, definitely taking a pause and understanding what you're feeling, being able to name that feeling, and then spending a little time reflecting. We're all human. So there are triggers that get us activated. And that the moment you maybe see a colleague, that colleague just makes you uncomfortable. There's not much you can do about it. But there's a feeling of discomfort without a person having even said anything. To be able to acknowledge that, to be able to say that, yes, I am feeling a certain manner, and then reflect on it and say, what can I do to help the situation? Can I just walk away for a few minutes? Can I go get a glass of water? Can I engage in a conversation without allowing my emotions to come into it? Can I remove the person from the conversation? So being able to reflect, being able to pause, and being able to create an environment where people feel safe around you. I think these are the professional habits that would allow us to create environments that are safe and trusting.
Right. Great going. And how can professionals handle conflict without damaging relationships?
Again, very similar to my previous answer, because I think what you really want out of the situation. So conflict is bound to happen if you're somebody who has an opinion and you share the opinion and the other person doesn't agree with it, there might be conflict. But conflict is not necessarily a bad thing, as long as you don't make it personal. So being able to separate your personal feelings, emotions with what is good for the organization, what is good for your team. So I think, again, it goes back to being able to pause, understand what you're feeling, understand what you want from that situation. So, like I said, conflict is not necessarily bad, but what do you really want out of that? To be able to, analyze that, reflect on that, and then work towards that. So, you want to be solution oriented and not somebody who wants to win the argument. So, and that happens sometimes when we allow our egos to come into place. So putting our egos aside and looking at the best solution for the organization and the team would be helpful.
Absolutely. That's so true, actually. Ego is one big issue which creates a lot of conflicts anywhere you go, be it in a relationship, in an office environment, or any other way. So, yes, absolutely. And how would you say, what role does self-awareness play in a leadership?
The more aware we are of ourselves, the more aware we will be of our impact on others. So when I'm working in an organization, I'm definitely working on a team. And at every given point, we're leaving the other person with a certain feeling. I mean, if you look at it, even when you cross somebody in a corridor, you don't know the person at all, but the person just looks at you and smiles or gives you a little nod. Something happened. There's a little sense of, I've been acknowledged. So having that self-awareness that what is your behavior doing to those around you will help again create an atmosphere that is far more conducive, far more positive, and will allow teams to function in a better manner. So I think just that basic awareness is will go a great way at work. And I think how do we increase this awareness? I'd like to add here is by taking feedback. Again, not easy. It is scary. We don't know what the other person is going to say. Again, we are allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. We're opening ourselves to hearing something that we may not like to hear. But all of this will allow us to grow. So I'm not saying you need to take feedback from everybody, but take feedback from those you trust. And when you're taking that feedback, just listen to it. Don't be defensive. Don't begin to, defend yourself and, respond or react. Allow the person to share feedback. If you need clarification, seek clarification. So if you think I domineer a meeting, can you give me an example of when I did that? Get clarification and then reflect on that. Because all of this will help you continuously become more aware and continuously improve as a professional.
So true. Absolutely. It's like an icebreaker, like you mentioned earlier, when you're walking across the aisle in the morning, usually people are so preoccupied with the agenda that they have to follow in the whole day, they forget to smile at someone or break the ice. So giving a smile, a genuine smile, even a small nod, it breaks the barrier which you would have created otherwise in the process. So great going, fantastic example for people to follow.
So I'll share something that I started doing. So and it was very nice because yesterday I did that. Whenever I leave an elevator, I just wish everybody a good day. And yesterday, for the first time, somebody actually responded and said, "And to you too." It just makes you feel nice. It's a great way to start the day. Very often, they just look at me and say, "What is she saying?" But
Absolutely.
occasionally, there will be somebody who will recognize that. And if you can make that one person smile, why not?
Absolutely. It happens very often. Even when I go inside the elevator and I'm smiling and I get off there, people actually look at me like something is wrong with you. Nobody really says hello to us or And then it suddenly
Correct.
becomes like they smile back and say, "Oh, somebody is actually genuinely kind to say a good morning or have a nice day." So yeah, I think it's a very good gesture. Like if you do that on a regular basis, it will create a lot of harmony around you because people will start appreciating, start looking at you and say, "Oh, she's one lady who smiles and say a good morning," something like that. They will recognize you for your actions and deeds.
We hear so much about this feed forward and do a good act forward. I just feel if we can all just, it doesn't have to be wishing somebody in an elevator, whatever it may be, just making somebody feel good about themselves.
Yes.
We don't know what kind of a day the other person's having. So why not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so spot on. Absolutely. One last question before we go to the rapid fire, which is my favorite one. If someone feels stuck emotionally or professionally, where should they actually begin?
They have to begin with themselves. They have to understand their own triggers. So, what is it that makes me feel emotionally vulnerable? And we all have patterns. There are things that will probably irritate you, and there are things that will probably irritate me, and we can feel our emotions going up at that time. I'll give you a very good example. It's a bit funny, but I think a lot of silly, but a lot of people can relate to this. So occasionally I travel to Gurgaon for work. And if you're familiar with the road, there comes a point where the road forks into two. The left fork takes you to Gurgaon and the right fork takes you to the airport. Now, when I'm heading there in the morning, I live in Delhi, so my commute to Gurgaon is generally in the morning during office hours. Invariably, there will be somebody who will come along the right and cut into you. As I begin to approach that crossing, my blood pressure begins to go high. It's a trigger, and I know it's a trigger. And I tell myself, you're not going to react. You're not going to react. So I haven't got it 100% under control. I still give the person a dirty look, but I'm much better than what I used to be. So, if we can understand what are the triggers and what is the pattern, then that will help us feel a little less stuck at work. And I think when we are unable to do that, today there is so much help available. I mean, you're working with professionals, I'm working with professionals. There is no harm reaching out. And I've seen clients go back feeling far calmer, far clearer in what they want to do. And like I said, this help is readily available. So, that would be the other bit of advice I would give everybody out there, that don't hesitate to ask for help because it will, in the end, make you feel better. It will, in the end, help you with your professional life and with your personal life. And why would you not want to do that?
Very true. Thank you so much for sharing so many insights for a lot of our viewers. I'm sure they will capture on all of these and try to utilize them, and I'm sure they will implement them in their workplace to make the environment a better one.
So,
This is,
Abhilasha, before we move to the rapid fire, sorry to interrupt, but I know you talked
yes,
about the environment in the office, and I wanted to share some statistics about an environment that is trusting. And trust comes from,
please.
social emotional behaviors and things. And I really felt that this was valuable. So, this study that was done by a gentleman called Paul Zak, he wrote a book on high performing organizations, and he studied trust. And he says that when the trust in an organization is high, productivity goes up by 50%. Burnout reduces by 40%. Energy levels, now this is a big one, go up by 106%. Stress levels, which really, are something like we said, are very challenging today, go down by 74%. And overall satisfaction levels go up by 29%. Now, this is research done. And I really felt it was valuable to share this research because, we sometimes don't give enough importance to the emotional atmosphere in an organization. And, our trust levels, our ability to speak up, our ability to take risk, all of that comes from there.
Very true. Thank you
So
so
sorry
much
to
for this.
interrupt you. Over to you.
No, absolutely. This is a priceless information that you have shared with the viewers, and I'm sure they once they listen to the research that has happened, I think they will be proactively looking into it and trying to implement it just so that they can make their environment a better place. So it's an absolutely wonderful sharing that you have given to us. So for the rapid fire, my one word that defines emotional intelligence for you.
Self-awareness,
Right. First step when feeling overwhelmed.
pause, breathe,
And a common mistake in communication.
reacting without thinking. So reacting without responding. I mean, excuse me, reacting rather than responding.
One habit that improves relationships instantly.
To be able to think of what the other person will feel when you say something, putting the other person's feelings ahead of your own.
So true. Calm or control, which matters most.
Definitely calm. Control will follow, but definitely calm.
So true. So before we wrap up, how can a social emotional coach actually help working professionals to achieve greater job satisfaction and happiness at home?
So I think the key would be it would help them understand themselves better. It would help them be far more aware of what they are going through in life and give them clarity and give them focus and practical tools on how to manage their emotions. Because when we're unable to manage our emotions, when we're feeling overwhelmed, our cognitive engagement is going to go down. So, as I said earlier, if emotions are high, logic is low. And if logic is low at workplace, we're not going to be able to take the right decisions. So, helping clients understand themselves, understand their emotions, giving them practical tips and tools how to manage them, how to navigate the challenges of life. And the same thing goes in relationships. Relationships are high emotion areas, especially when they're close relationships. And again, to be able to understand what are the patterns, what is it that my spouse does that hackles me? What is it that my child says that upsets me? And why? Why do I feel the way I feel and why do I behave the way I behave? I mean, how many of times we've said something and regretted it later, whether it's to a child, to our spouse, to a friend, and then you're like, why did I say that? And the reason we said that at that moment was because we were not able to be aware of our feeling and engage our cognitive mind.
Very
So
true.
I think that's where a life coach would really be able to help individuals understand their emotions and be better versions of themselves, both at work and at home.
Absolutely. So we are coming to the end of our podcast, Anez, and it has been an absolute pleasure to have you with us. And on behalf of our viewers and Skyora podcast, we wish you all the very best in your future endeavors and hope you keep inspiring people as you go along. So thank you so much. It has been lovely to have you with us and hope we'll see you again soon.
My pleasure, Abhilasha. Thank you so much for having me here. And I really hope that people will begin to talk about and read about emotional intelligence because I feel it is key to happiness. Thank you once
Absolutely.
again for having me and for addressing this very, very important topic.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day. See you again.
Thank you.